Welcome everyone. My name is Lisa and I want to thank you for joining our session today. We're going to be talking using everything DISC on Catalyst to help build better relationships. Now, this webinar today is designed to be interactive and engaging and fun. And as we get into the content, we're going to be using different session features. So I want to introduce my producer, Andy, to go over some quick logistics about interacting in our session today.
Hey
Andy?
everybody. Thanks Lisa. Say welcome back. Just a quick reminder, we will be using the chat feature. So you'll be able to add to the class chat, and you can find that through your menu on the platform that we're using. There's also a function called reactions, and it's going to allow us to raise our hands to applaud for a job well done, whatever it may be. So let's go ahead and find the reactions. We can see smiley faces in there, a thumbs up, whatever you find. Once you find the reaction, can you please post it quick? Great. I can see most of us have already done this. Otherwise, the microphones, we're not going to have you muted. We can always mute if there's a lot of feedback, but Lisa's going to keep this really collaborative and interactive. So we'll jump right in.
All right, thank you, Andy. I also want to add that you might want to do some light note taking. There's going to be opportunities for you to jot down notes, and you'll want to have something where you can do that. So pen and paper is fine, or maybe open up a Word document on another screen so that you can have that opportunity to take some notes. Most importantly, though, is that you'll be experiencing DISC using the Catalyst platform. This is where you're going to find your assessment results and your style feedback. So I want to show you that platform right now. So you want to make sure you log in to the Catalyst platform. We've put the URL link right there in the chat box for you. So make sure that you go to the Catalyst and log in. So you'll click log in. And we will be working in the workplace session. So for me, the easiest way to get to it is just go to this menu in the upper right corner and then all the way over to the left, click on workplace. And you'll see the sections in the workplace portion of Catalyst that we'll be working in. So we will be working in building better relationships today. So that is how you get into Catalyst. If everybody could go ahead and get yourself situated in the Catalyst, and we'll get started. All right. So in this session, we're going to be learning how to use DISC to improve your workplace relationships. So before we dive in, let's get a real quick overview of the DISC model. So you see here on my screen, the DISC model consists of 4 main DISC styles. We have the D style, which is dominance, that is characterized by being direct or firm. If we move over here to the I influence style, we have outgoing, enthusiastic. Coming down here to the S or steadiness style, excuse me, even-tempered and accommodating. And finally, conscientiousness, our C style, more analytical and reserved in nature there. So, and you can also have a mixture or a blend of 2 styles, maybe a CD, for example, or an SI. And that's characteristic of the model as well. So Andy, let's do a quick poll. I'm curious which quadrant your dot is in. So if you need to remind yourself, go ahead and go back out to the Catalyst platform and look at your DISC map on the home page of your Catalyst. So go ahead and select which quadrant your dot is in. All right, so looks like we have pretty even split here from the D, S, and C quadrant. Unfortunately, we don't have somebody from the I quadrant here today, but that is okay. We will work just fine with that. So thank you, Andy. You can go ahead and put that down. Great. All right, so now I'd like a few volunteers to share their thoughts on a question. Of those 5 adjectives that were shown that are shown here on this slide, under your style, which one do you think that people that you work with would most likely choose to describe you? So which characteristic there, knowing you or working with you, do you think people would tend to choose to describe you? Go ahead, you can type that in the chat box, or you can put that in the, or raise your hand, and I'll be happy to call on you. All right, Nathan says people know he's results oriented. He's got that D style. Good, thank you. What else? Who else wants to share what people would think? What would be one of those characteristics that they would most likely choose to describe you? Go ahead and raise your hand too. I'd love to hear other voices in the room. Get tired of just my own. Anybody else?
I can go. Sorry, I lost my mouse there for a moment.
Okay, Angelica, thank you.
I think people have said in the past that they think I'm reserved at first, but then once you get to know me, I'm pretty cool.
All right.
Reserved at all.
So pretty cool. I don't see that on the board, but I think you can take that as a descriptor after all.
I don't know
Good.
what's the opposite of reserved. Going with cool.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Angelica. Anybody else? Somebody we haven't heard from for a little bit. Ashley or Ingrid? Something that people would say most likely describes you from that list there.
I was also going to say results oriented. I think I hear that quite often from people who just, starting to get to know me.
Okay, so you have that D style as well. Good, good. And Ingrid, what word there would people describe you as from your style?
People describing me as someone really private or reserved, since I am a C style, CS style.
All right. All right. Great. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. All right. So let's also think about another part of your DISC style, and that is another thing to point out that's relevant are those words around the circle. These represent the what different styles prioritize at work. So everyone has at least 3 workplace priorities, those closest to your dot in the and your comfort zone. But you can also have more than just those 3. You can have an additional 1 or even 2 additional workplace priorities that aren't typical for your style. So for example, this person here that has this IS style. So they'll naturally be assigned to the priorities enthusiasm, collaboration, and support, because those tend to resonate very highly with somebody with this style. But this person also resonates really highly with the results priority. And because that's the way they responded in the assessment, that came out of their results as well. So they get this additional shading, this striped shading. And that will tell you that that's an additional style. That may not be typical. It isn't typical for somebody with that style, but whether through education or work experience, they have developed an appreciation for that priority and actually actively engage with that priority. But keep in mind, having 4 or 5 priorities is no better or worse than having 3. They all are representative of who we are in the workplace. So your workplace priorities are explored in the What Drives You section of the Catalyst program. For today, we'll be focusing on how these priorities will help you understand more about the people that you work with. Before we move on, does anybody have any questions about the DISC style or the priorities at all? If you do, go ahead and raise your hand. All right, it looks like we're all ready to keep going. Good. All right, so to work more effectively with others, we sometimes have to bridge differences in style preferences and priorities, and DISC is a great tool that shows us how to do that. In some cases, building more effective relationships in the workplace requires adapting your approach to accommodate to the preferences of another person. Sometimes it means doing something more internal, like simply appreciating what somebody brings to the table, maybe just empathizing with the other person's situation, or accepting the behavior as normal for that person. So in this section, we're going to learn how others have bridged differences across the DISC model and get an opportunity to really practice using DISC to build more effective relationships at work. We'll start by using the Catalyst program to learn how you can become more effective when working with other styles. So first, I want you to take a moment to think of a person that you want to work more effectively with and consider what style that person probably has. If you're not sure exactly what their DISC style is, ask yourself these questions here. Is this person more fast-paced, or are they more cautious? Are they more questioning, or are they more accepting? And when you get the answers to those two questions, you can estimate their DISC style. So those who are fast-paced and outspoken and accepting and warm, they're going to fall in the area of having an I style. Now, somebody who's accepting and warm, but is more on that cautious, reflective pace, they're going to probably exhibit characteristics of having an S style. Now, somebody who's cautious and reflective, but more questioning and skeptical will be will probably have a C style. And those who are questioning and skeptical, but fast-paced instead, will be more have more of a D style. So let's see what styles you're all interested in learning about today. So everyone who chose that D style, type in the letter D into the chat box down in our chat box there. So if you're interested in learning about the D style, go ahead and put D in the chat box. All right, we've got 2 people interested in doing that. And now everyone who chose the I style, go ahead and put the letter I into the chat. Okay, we have a couple of people looking to build relationships with the I style. How about for those who chose the S style? Please type the letter into that chat box there. All right. And how about the C style? Who selected the C style? All right, so I'm seeing our group is split between working with the D style and working with the I style, so that's great. All right, so to get started though, what I want you to do now that you've identified the person's style that you want to work better with, you're going to use that Catalyst program again to learn more about how you're going to work with them. So go to your Catalyst window again and navigate to the You and Other Styles page. So we talked about that. I showed that to you just a minute ago. You and Other Styles right here. And in that platform, find the DISC style of the person that you want to work more effectively with. So if it's the D style, they'll be right here at the top. The I style will be, if you scroll down a little further, will be right under there, and so on. The S style and the C style would follow as well. All right, so once you've found that place, go ahead and get that situated in your Catalyst platform. All right, now you'll see that there are 3 sets of information for each style. So for now, just choose one section to read. You can pick the one that feels more relevant to your relationship. Or, for example, if you would like to know more about how to better communicate with your person, read the area titled When You Need to Be More Effective. If you spend a lot of time collaborating with this person, you might want to read When Problems Need to Be Solved. Or if sometimes you find yourself in conflict with this person, you might want to choose When Things Get Tense. So choose one of those sections for the style that you want to become more effective with. And I want you to take a couple of minutes to read your chosen paragraph and the 3 bulleted tips that are beneath it. And then make a note of the tip that feels most useful to you. So I'll give you about 2 minutes of quiet time to do this. Okay, I'm going to stop everybody for a moment. I think I directed you to the wrong spot. So I'm going to back up for just a moment here. I have the wrong information in my notes, so I apologize, everybody. So let's back it up to this point and I'll get you directed to the right place. Thank you for your patience. Okay, now that you've identified the person's style, you'll use the Catalyst platform to learn more about how to work better with them. So you want to go to your Catalyst window and navigate to the Build Better Relationships page. So again, we're in the Workplace section, and under Build Better Relationships, you will see each style will be listed here, starting with the D style. So go ahead and find the style of the person that you want to work better with. Now, when you find that, what you'll want to do is in your Catalyst window, you'll want to go find the section. There's going to be 3 sections for each of these different styles. When you need to be more effective, when problems need to be solved, when things get tense. And in those sections, what you want to choose just one section to read for right now. So for example, if you'd like to know more about how to better communicate with that person, you might want to read When You Need to Be More Effective. If you want to spend time, if you do spend a lot of time collaborating with this person, you could read When Problems Need to Be Solved. And if you sometimes find yourself in conflict with this person, then you might want to read the section When Things Get Tough. So you want to read your chosen paragraph and the 3 bulleted tips that are beneath it, and then make a note of the tip that feels most useful for you. I'll give you 2 minutes now of quiet time to do that. All right, give you 15 seconds or so to finish up any final statement you're writing down. Good. All right. Next, you're going to take the learning further by watching a video showing a group of team members discussing how they learn to work more effectively with somebody of your chosen style. So Andy's going to put some video links into our chat box now. And we're going to share these links to these 4 different videos, but you will only watch one video, the video that relates to the style that you've chosen to learn about. So for example, if the person you want to work more effectively with has a D style, then click the link for working with the D style video. And then as you watch the video, make note of any tips or insights that resonate with you. And afterward, you'll have an opportunity to discuss what you've learned with others who are focusing on the same style that you are. Now, these video segments are about 4 minutes long, and you will need to mute your microphone while watching. So you'll be hearing them through your speaker, but you'll need to mute your microphone so that we won't have any of the feedback. Okay, everyone, mute your microphones and then click on the link that you want.
So, who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Okay.
Relationships. That is what it's all about for you, and you put a lot of time into them. And I used to think, maybe a little too much time. But that's just because at work, relationships are less of a priority for me, and I think that's caused some problems for us.
Yeah, a few.
Yeah, and it was getting in the way of our projects. So I made our relationship a priority. I stopped interrupting you. I started listening more, even when I knew where you were going with something. And I try not to be all business all the time. And, you know, we talk about things other than work. I still get antsy sometimes. I'm sorry about that. But I think things are pretty good between us.
Yeah, things have come a long way. You hear me out now, and that feels good.
Yeah, and I think we got along really well from the start. I mean, sure, we had some bumps along the way. Working with you can be kind of chaotic.
Very chaotic.
Yeah.
Very, just a little chaotic.
Well, you have a lot of energy and tons of ideas, and, you know, that's great. Don't get me wrong, Steph. You know, you help us get a lot of things started, but then you can lose interest when we get into the more routine stuff.
Guilty.
Yeah. And working with you has been tricky for me because, you know, my first instinct is to think, how is that even going to work? But the first words out of my mouth are, okay, sounds good, because I want to be supportive. So for me, it's about finding a balance between stepping back and giving your ideas a chance and still finding a way to make my concerns heard.
Yeah, for me, it's easier to speak up if something isn't working, but then I go too far. I'll start picking the idea apart without really hearing you out.
Yeah, I'll be really excited about something, and you will just shut it down. And then I'm left thinking, well, is that it?
I know, and I'm sorry about that. If I give myself a few days to think about it, I usually come around and finding a way that we can make it work.
And I appreciate that. It lets me know that you're listening to me. And I need to feel heard. I want to feel heard. And when you do that, when all of you do that, it makes me feel like I'm part of a team. So thank you.
All right, everybody should be just about finished right now. If you can hear me, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Let me know when you're finished. All right, so now I am going to go ahead and break you into groups according to the style that you chose so that you can discuss what you noted down from watching that video. So once you are in your group, I'd like you to discuss two things. First, share the tip that you chose from the Catalyst platform. And then second, in the video you watched, what resonated with you? Did you pick up any additional tips from what you watched in that video? So in this breakout room, you'll have 10 minutes to discuss, and then I'll have you share back with the rest of the class when we come back into the main room. All right, so Andy, if you want to go ahead and set up that breakout room.
Okay, so you should see a pop-up that comes across the bottom of your screen, and you can select the breakout room. If not, just bear with me one moment and I can help assign breakouts.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
Okay. So,
So, what's the first question? Okay, the tip from Catalyst.
Mhm.
so the tip that I picked, I have a DI style, and it was avoid pressuring them to put success over personal connections. And that one just stood out to me because I have a lot of shared traits with folks who have an I style, but the theme was pretty much you put more focus on the bottom line than someone who has an I style. And so that reminder to value that and also not try to force them to be like me, I think was good.
Yeah, I think for me, so I'm a DI, but I kind of am a little more in the middle. But for me, it was balancing directness with warmth and empathy. I think sometimes I don't think about that when I'm, going into a meeting and talking about a project or something like that. I definitely am a little more direct. And I know maybe sometimes that comes off as, I don't know, not as warm maybe, or just a little cold. So that I kind of took that, and yeah, that resonated.
I think for me, the one that I chose was tap into their energy when the situation requires a quick resolution that appeals to everyone. I'm a CD style, so my goal is like, I want to get it done. And I tend to be very blunt about that, okay, this is what we're going to do and this is what I think. And sometimes that approach doesn't work with everyone. And I do think that this one caught my attention because that's something that I don't think I would be able to do, like being super, enthusiastic and get everyone on board. But eyes are very good at doing that.
Mm-hmm.
What did you all think of that video that we watched?
I think it was interesting to see how they all kind of recognize where where they were, I don't want to say like disregarding, but not paying a lot of attention to what's important to that eye style, which is sometimes how I feel. I like a lot, or like the things that stayed with me were when she said, I I want you to hear me out, and I want to
Mhm.
feel that you actually heard my ideas. And then Dante was saying, they were kind of having the conversation between his style and hers, and he was saying, sometimes I shoot your ideas down, but I just need more time to think about it, and then, I can come back and actually provide some feedback, which is very similar to my approach. And it was reassuring for me to know that she appreciates that he comes back to her, even, if it's, a few days later or something. So yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of pulled the exact same thing when she was saying, I just want to be heard. That really resonated. And then I think too, just kind of leaning again into that my D style, and kind of listening to what Sally was saying about, how I's really kind of want more of that personal relationship with their colleagues. And I know from my personal experience, I'm kind of more focused on like the business at hand and getting the project done or getting, the work done. And I'm not so focused on, not that I wouldn't want to create a personal relationship with my colleagues, but, just it's not like top of mind always. So I think that really resonated when she said, she was making an effort to, kind of have more of that personal relationship.
The moment that really stood out to me, it felt like a punch to the gut in the video, was when Tom called her chaotic. And you could tell that it really had an impact on her. I'm sure that's something that she's heard before, or she's just like, I'm just excited. And yeah, there are so many great ideas. And so then to hear that at first, it was kind of hard to watch, but then when he explained a little bit further about, oftentimes you'll get started on something, but once we get to the boring part, you're done. And she was like, yes, that is me. But they all seem to, just accept that, yes, she is really strong in that initial launch and pitching the idea and the enthusiasm and the excitement about that. But it seems like the team has enough balance there where they're still going to be able to get things across the finish line. But
Well, we have 4 minutes.
well, we nailed it. We've conquered working with the iStyle.
It's funny because we all have like some sort of D style,
Right.
Right.
and we got it done. We're like, okay, we're good.
Yeah.
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 I think so. The reason that I picked the I style, I think that typically when I go through these things, my tendency is to pick an S style because it feels like the farthest stretch, because there is so much with the I style that I connect with. But I think sometimes I take that for granted a little bit. And so it's good to just be reminded of, yes, there's a lot that you share, but here's probably a lot of things that you do that hurt your I style colleagues, or there are things that you could change and they would feel more appreciated, or you'd be more effective together. And so I think that there's a lot of really good reminders in here, and I honestly think that I neglect the I style a little bit when trying to learn more about them, because I make a lot of assumptions that I already know what it's like to be an I style. But especially Ashley, that first comment you made about balance, being straightforward with the warmth and empathy, and that's, again, it's so easy, I think, to pigeonhole or stereotype disc styles, where I would typically say warmth and empathy for an S style, right? And so being reminded that, no, this is a priority for your I style colleagues as well, I thought was really important and beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really good point. And I feel the same way. Sometimes you just kind of make assumptions without recognizing that there's probably a little bit more to someone outside of just like those few things that we know about the style.
Yeah. And, being reminded that, yeah, we all are a blend of all four styles, but that the styles share priorities with the, two that are next to them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, would anyone like to be the spokesperson when we get back to the room? I'm sure we'll do a little debrief.
I think you should do it.
Okay,
You're good at that.
You are good at that, Alicia.
Thank you. Okay, so what do we like? We're being reminded of warm and empathetic.
Being part of a team.
Yep.
That's what's important to her. Feeling heard.
Yes. Sharing in their enthusiasm or drawing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh yeah, I think leveraging their enthusiasm
was
and
it.
energy to, you know, get people on board.
Okay. Leveraging their, okay, so I have warm and empathetic, want to be part of a team, value, really this need to be heard, and you should leverage their enthusiasm and energy to get people on board. Cool. And sometimes when we're frank and blunt, it can come across as insensitive to them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. We did it.
All right, everybody, coming back from the breakout room into our main room, walking down that virtual hallway. Welcome back, everybody. I'm really looking forward to learning what you discovered here today. So let's go ahead and get started with those who are working with the I style. We'll give I the first chance here today. So for those of you who want to work better with the I style, can I get a volunteer from that group to share some points that came out of your discussion? What tips would you like to keep in mind as you're going forward, whether from the platform or from your discussion? Alicia, go ahead.
Yeah, so the main things that we all want to keep in mind is to approach our iStyle colleagues with warmth and empathy, and also leverage their enthusiasm when trying to get folks on board. And just a reminder that it's really important for our iStyle colleagues to feel heard, and that sometimes when we're frank or blunt, it can come across as insensitive to
Good.
our I colleagues.
Awesome. Wow, that's a great list. I've got some tips there on the board there, and I think you pretty much touched base on all of those, I think. Thank you very much, Alicia. Now, for those of you who have the I style, what tips or ideas would you add? Is there anything more that you would add, something that you want to make sure everybody here knows about the best things about those I styles? Who's an I style in this group here? Is there anything more you can share with us? One thing I know about I styles, because I work with a few, and I have a couple in my family, is that they don't want to. The interaction doesn't always have to be about work. They honestly would like to have some social time, even if it's just 2 minutes. You walk up to them and spend some time just talking about each other personally. Really, really energizes the person with the I style. Really helps them connect with you better. So I know that's something that many people with the I style really appreciate. Doesn't have to go on for very long, but just a little bit of social time, a little bit of personal interaction always does their heart good. All right, so good. Thank you, Alicia, for presenting on behalf of your group. Let's go ahead and look at some of the other styles here. Our next slide here is the S style, and we didn't have anybody in this group here who was wanting to work better with the S style. So I just want to make sure that you get a chance to take a look at these tips here on the screen. Take a collaborative approach with the S style, check in and share updates, consider how decisions will affect others, so making sure that that's part of your conversation that will really resonate with somebody with the S style, and encourage them to take risks when needed. And as an S, the only thing I could add to that is, my thought just left me. I'm sorry. Anything from the S style? Anybody else in the S style group here who might want to share if there's anything more that you would like to add?
I can speak to that.
Sure, Christy.
In my group, we were actually talking about the D style, but we had a couple S styles in the group.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Beth that spoke about how checking in is really important, just to leave an extra minute or two at the end of a meeting, or a little bit of time as you're walking around the office or something like that, just to say, how did that feel to you? Or is there anything else you want to add to that? Or does anyone have a question? Or just a tiny little bit of time, just in case they've been mulling on something and have that one last thing to get off their chest. I think that's so valuable and so helpful.
Yeah, that is a great tip. Thank you for adding that, Christy. That is really great. And, you know, it reminded me of the tip that I was going to bring up, and that is just, you know, ask for my opinion. I often have an opinion. I have some ideas, but I'm not going to be very forthcoming in presenting them. But I always appreciate it when somebody will ask for my opinion and ask for my thoughts. So that relates a little bit to what you were saying as well, Christy. But just checking in, making sure that the person that S-style person feels good about what's happening or doesn't have anything more to add that they didn't get a chance to add in the meeting or didn't feel comfortable adding. Always great to ask for those additional thoughts. So good tips. Thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and move on around the circle. We now have our C-style coworker, and we didn't have anybody in the group working with the C-style right now, so we do have some tips to share there. Giving background information and time to process, make clear fact-based arguments, allow them space, and don't take their reserve personally. So those are some real key points for working with the C-style. Now, I'm not sure if we have anybody with the C-style in the group, but if we do, who might want to add to this list or any personal insights that you'd like to give us about working better with you, I would definitely appreciate if you want to speak up.
I can chat a little bit. I am categorized mostly as a D style, but my dot is just right on that line. So I kind of flop back and forth, and I do have some pretty strong C tendencies. I mean, one of the biggest things, I've said this a couple times to people, is like with the reserved bit, a lot of times when I'm getting new information, I need to process pretty significantly. I tell people to just imagine that I've got, like, you know, that spinning pinwheel on like a Mac, or like the loading screen on like a website that's loading, right?
Yeah.
Like my brain needs to take that time. So if I don't respond right away, it's not because I don't like the idea, or it's not because I think it's bad. It's 99 times out of 100 due to me just needing to think through like all the possible information surrounding an idea before I want to make my responses.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so just have that understanding that because of his nature, that need to process, there may not be an immediate reaction. And don't take that personally either. Immediate reactions are, you won't always get that when you have working with somebody with the C style. So thank you for offering that up, Nathan. I really appreciate that. All right, and then we do have a group of people who wanted to work with the D style more effectively. So if I could get a volunteer from that group to share some of the points that came out of your discussion or some tips that you want us to keep in mind. Who would like to offer up what you talked about in the D style group? Go ahead and raise your hand and let me know. Nathan, thank you.
I can go again.
All right.
Like I said, I have a lot of C tendencies, but I also have quite a few D ones as well. And it was actually, like, speaking personally, it was really funny for me to read the information they're giving me, because it was like, you know, all those things that you do, well, the other person's going to do them too, right? So there was some talk about butting heads, but like a lot of the information that I got was focused in on, you know, trying to like not make up your mind right away and try to stay open to other D-style like ideas, because you have your way of doing things, but they have their way of doing things too, and no one of them is necessarily right. And to try and avoid like setting up situations where one side is quote unquote winning, because the like a D style will naturally want to kind of push their ideas more and find their ways to like get to that end result a lot faster. And you need to be like, I need to be open to listening to other ideas from D style people and to not necessarily like always challenge super directly, but kind of listen.
Yeah. Kind of avoid the competition for ideas.
Yeah, and to try and get to the point directly when communicating with them.
Good. Thank you. So Nathan, you were a D style trying to work better with the D style. So that's a really interesting insight, because often people don't think, we automatically tend to think that we're going to naturally just not work well with the person across the map from ourselves, but that's not always the case. I mean, we can have challenges with any of the other styles, including people who have the same style that we have. So I'm glad that you had that opportunity and can share some of those insights of working with somebody with your own style. Great. Anybody else from that group have anything else to offer us? Any insights from your point of view? Any extra tips?
Not to put her on the spot, but Christy did have a pretty good
Christy? Okay.
thing that she brought
I'm
up.
trying. Which one are you talking about, Nathan?
The speaking up sooner.
Oh yeah. So one of the tips into how to, I think it was how to be more effective, was just raise your point or speak up sooner rather than later in the conversation. And I mentioned that I tend to wait, just thinking, oh, maybe whatever it was that I had to say is going to get disproven, or someone is going to say something against it. And so I'll wait to make sure. And whereas Nathan, I think you actually commented like that could be a plus, whereas if it gets brought up earlier, you might jump onto that bandwagon and say, oh yeah, that's a great idea. And if I don't say it sooner, I may not say it at all either. So I think it's important to step out of your comfort zone a little bit, challenge yourself to speak up maybe a little bit earlier, if not the very first voice, and just be willing to share that thought.
Great.
And if I can take that just like one step even further, one other thing we talked about in our group was that like with my D style, I tend to, if I find an avenue that seems like it's going to work, like we find a potential solution that seems like it's going to work, I tend to just try to take that and run with it. And so like if Christy's in the meeting and she's waiting, but she's got, you know, a different, possibly even better solution, it can be hard for me to reframe if her solution comes up later on in the conversation. So like if she, you know, kind of stretches a bit and speaks up a bit earlier, and then we can get, you know, a couple options on the table rather than, and then it's easier to, you know, for me and I'm assuming some other people with D styles to, you know, to be able to weigh them all in that moment instead of having to kind of throw out everything that I had been thinking and come back and reconsider an idea.
Yeah, it's almost like you've got that momentum going, right? And you don't stop that momentum once you've started, and bringing up something much later in the conversation may well do that.
Yeah, so I think I hear Nathan saying that if you get that idea out there right away, that momentum will be applied to your idea as well as the idea that he had as well, so that you know, both can be considered equally and compared and whatever needs to happen in that discussion. Excellent conversation, you guys. Thank you. Sounds like it was a great time in the Working with D group. All right, any final thoughts? I do have some points, some tips for working with Ds here, which I think we have touched on most of them. Try to get to the point quickly. Don't take abruptness personally. Balance taking time and making progress, and speaking up with opinions. All right, so good. And I think all of those pretty much came out in this last discussion here. So I really appreciate that. Good learnings, everybody. So as you can see with DISC, you will be able to bridge differences in your workplace and become more effective with all kinds of people. It's just an excellent tool to help you do that. So let's go back to the Catalyst platform. I want to draw your attention to another resource that you have there. You may have already noticed that within each DISC style section in the Build Better Relationships page, you can see colleagues who have that style. So let me toggle in here. So people you may know in the D region. So you can come down here and you'll see, now this is Mateo's group, so it's not your group here, but as you scroll down, now we're in the I section here, you can identify some of the people in your work group or organization that that have that style. So as you're looking at and trying to understand how to work more effectively with people with different styles, you can actually seek out those individuals and identify them as well, and maybe start building better relationships with them as well. So I want you to look through these 3 styles that you didn't focus on today and choose someone that you do work with regularly. So go back to that page in the Catalyst and find somebody on this page in some style that you do work with regularly. All right, I hope you've got somebody in mind now. And so then as a follow-up activity to today's session, I want you to take some time to learn about that person by reading this relevant information and the tips on building better relationships page. Make a note of 2 or 3 ideas that could be applied to your working relationship. And then you can also click on their name to go to their own colleague page and learn more about how the 2 of you might work together. All right, so you can see the Catalyst platform has a lot of tools for you to use to connect better with many different people within your organization. Well, that concludes our session here today. I want to thank you for participating, and it's really been a pleasure being your facilitator. I really encourage you to continually explore the Catalyst platform for more tips and insights. It's a great resource for using DISC.